How y'all doing? How y'all doing? This is Alvin with Trying Success here on the Old Fashioned Health Network. Good health inside and out. And y'all, I have another one of my favorite people on my show today. I am so happy to have Miss Jennifer Giles from 44 Consulting Group. I got like a lot of questions. I want people to know this lady. I'm already just like so impressed at the fact that I've been telling Jennifer for a long time because of the work she does, how well she does the job. I'm amazed and I'm able to reach out to you as easily as it is for me. But I know that's not going to be long because when people get to find out exactly who you are, it may not be that easy when they find out all of your accomplishments. So Jennifer, welcome to the show. Please tell the people a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Alvin. And it'll always be easy for you to reach out to me.
Okay.
So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jennifer Giles, as you said, and I am a president and principal consultant with 44 Consulting Group, which also has a sub-practice called Jen's Pen. So what we do is connect organizations, corporations, and people to their target audience using communication strategies that can encompass everything from strategic planning to crisis management. We also do media coaching, media consulting, and we do a ton of strategic writing, including ghostwriting books and scripts and a lot of other interesting work that we do with people around Georgia, around Atlanta, and some outside of Atlanta. Actually, a lot outside of Atlanta as well.
Yeah, see, I've read, and when they go to your website and they get a chance to see a lot of the people you work with, see, Jennifer's pretty modest about who she works for. I mean, when you work for the likes of Michael Jackson, Madonna, and George Clooney, and all those people, you make it seem like they live right here in Atlanta, over in Stone Mountain, with people around the world.
Yes, absolutely. And seriously, I have had wonderful opportunities to work with a lot of people who are just everyday business people, everyday academics. And I've had opportunities to work with, A-list celebrities, Madonna, the Michael Jackson estate, Ava DuVernay's organization, just a ton of really great people. But I look at them all as opportunities for me to be able to bring something to them that helps them in their organizations.
So, one of the things I've always liked about what you do and who you are as a person, you do not come across as, I've worked for a lot of A-lister people that I can't work for a person that may be a small business startup, but you have an application that fits everybody. And that's one of the things I like.
Yes. So you're absolutely right. We do try to I try to tailor what I do to the organization, the person, what their specific needs are. So, for example, in working with the Michael Jackson estate, that was more of a crisis management opportunity for me and for the team that I led, because he was already deceased, but when the movie Leaving Neverland was released in 2019, it created a crisis for the Michael Jackson estate, and it was a great pleasure and opportunity to work with the people who managed that estate to try and reverse some of the negative fallout, negative media coverage that came as a result of the release of that movie.
So, and that's what I mean, for Jennifer to work on such a high level, and then you be so humble to work with even small startup business. I mean, you
absolutely
people that are just mainly getting out of the gate to get them what I like to say is suitcased and packaged up to be able to climb I guess we climb the corporate ladder when you're a small company trying to get there, huh?
Absolutely. Work with small companies and actually do quite a bit of work with nonprofit organizations. We do a ton of work with nonprofits based, some in Atlanta, others are based in New York. And these nonprofits, many of them have a social change mission. So social change, particularly in communities of color. So working with organizations here in Atlanta, for example, that are addressing problems like educational inequity, where you have young, primarily students of color, Black students, who are not able to access the same level of opportunity in terms of education and kind of moving through their elementary to high school and even college. Work with a number of organizations that focus on historically Black colleges and universities and helping those students gain scholarships and other leg up kinds of amenities that often they are not always able to access.
Now, when it comes to working for nonprofits, you're also able to you help them raise funds if necessary, or put together packages for that.
Yes, so I want to be clear that I'm not a fundraiser, but I work very closely with fundraisers. Where I come in is when there is a need for communications to support a capital campaign or a fundraising campaign. So that communications can run the gamut from what we call a case for support, where we're making the case for organizations to support. And it can also include branding. It can include marketing and communications plans to help those organizations tell their stories in a compelling way, so compelling that people open up their checkbooks and give.
So to me, that sounds like a very skilled sales package written properly without having to go knock on the door.
Yes, you're right. So what's interesting is that once we entered the COVID era, if you will, how many organizations, it really threw a lot of organizations into a crisis. They did not know how to continue to ask people who had been funding them for money without seeming insensitive, because all of the monies were being funneled towards organizations that were, for example, food banks, because as you remember, people were having a difficult time feeding their families.
Yes.
So what we did and what we do is to give a number of webinars and advising those organizations how you can skillfully, tactfully, and with sensitivity, continue to ask for that money that you so desperately need to keep your organization's doors open. So it is a skill. It's a skill that I actually brought over from years of working at big corporations. And I was amazed at how what I learned at working at those big corporations could be really suitcased and transported over to nonprofit organizations as well as academic institutions. We love working with HBCU students. I've worked with HBCUs now for about 21 years, and what we're able to bring to them and the opportunities that we're able to support those students in accessing is really extremely rewarding.
Yeah, because you work for Morehouse and Spelman as well, right?
Actually, Spelman College was one of my clients for a number of years. Morehouse School of Medicine, which is a medical college, but it actually has a social mission, Alvin, because a great deal of the focus of the Morehouse School of Medicine is trying to ensure health equity to communities that often do not have it. For example, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's always not only surprising but disheartening to learn how many Black women do not have access to mammograms and to breast cancer screening, and as a result, they're diagnosed later, their cancers tend to be more aggressive, and their likelihood of survival is greatly decreased as well. So working with Morehouse School of Medicine, I was able to tell that message, the story of how Morehouse School of Medicine is really working to bring healthcare equity into a lot of communities that do not have access. Prostate cancer screening is another one that Black men often are diagnosed later. Cancer is more aggressive, and then so must be the treatment and the fight for life, actually.
So let me ask you a couple of questions. So let's just go from small to large as far as business is concerned. So give you a scenario. You got a small business startup that may have 5 employees. They have a mission statement. They know exactly what they want to do, what their client looks like, but they don't know how to reach the client or don't know how to perfect the right mission statement or written properly so they can reach their target audience. how would you approach that? What is it that you do to help with that?
So the first thing that I do is to meet with the leaders and the staff and really get a clear understanding of where they are and where they want to go. Okay. Because communications, if you think about communications, it's really a bridge. That's really what it is. It is a bridge that can help take a person, a message, a brand from where it is to where it needs to go, or to whom it needs to be in front of, if you will. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I do is sit down and get a good understanding of who this organization is. Mm-hmm. What do they stand for? What's important? What's the product? Why is this product better than another competitor's product? Right. Those are the kinds of things that I do in an initial assessment. And then I may meet with them a couple of more times and I go to work. Okay. My work is to sit down and think about where this organization is and how they can best communicate their story. So that could involves a strategic communications plan. Mm-hmm. And, people might be rolling their eyes and thinking, a plan? I don't have time for a plan. Right. You don't have a time not to have a plan. That's right. Because the plan is what's going to get you where you're trying to go. So many organizations, especially smaller ones and even some larger ones, underestimate the effectiveness and the efficacy of having a plan in place that will move target audiences. And that plan is going to include all kinds of particular messages that you might want to communicate. Mm-hmm. The plan can be short, it can be long, but you've got to have a plan. That's where we start. And we also walk alongside those organizations to execute that plan. And we measure how effective that plan is, whether you're trying to increase sales, mm-hmm. whether you're trying to raise more money, whether you're trying to effectively position your brand, whether it's trying to repair a relationship or repair a reputation because you've been involved in something or something has happened at your organization to make people lose trust in your brand.
So here's a this is not a trick question, but this is just a question.
Okay.
The first thing comes to my mind when you talk about repairing a reputation. I think right now the person whose reputation is out in the spotlight more than anybody's Brett Favre at this point. He has a nonprofit, he has an organization. How do you recover a person from something that they've actually literally done? I mean, do you just go and say, okay, so this is what you have done and this is your plan to try to fix it? Or you don't act like the attorney and then make them lie? What do you do?
No, never lie. The first thing that I do when an organization is in a crisis is understand how that crisis evolved. Because in crisis management, the public usually looks at the organization as either a victim or a villain. Okay. And you've got to own which camp you're in. So in this case, Brett's organization was a villain. Right. The same thing happened with Livestrong when that organization experienced a scandal. Mm-hmm. So you've got to the first thing is understanding how it evolved, and sometimes the events are unfolding so quickly that there's not a lot of time. But we do need to understand how the organization got to where it is, how that crisis came about. The second thing we do is, if you are a villain, or even sometimes if you're a victim, you've got to own that crisis. You've got to own it. You've got to come out. You've got to be visible, and you've got to say, this is what we did. This is how we're going to fix it, and actually fix it. So crisis management repair or reputation repair is a multi-step process that begins first with owning what you did. And sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes the lawyers won't let you do that. I've had a lot of crises that I was managing where there is a little bit of a rift between the communications folks and the lawyers. The communications people want you to get out there and talk. The lawyers are saying, shut up, because it can come back and bite you if there is litigation that follows. But we do try to come to a happy medium with the attorneys that are working those cases. And reputation repair, as I said, is a multi-step process that includes a number of communications factors and can actually go on for maybe up to a year, where that organization is trying to make amends with the communities that were harmed or affected in some way.
So, I think of another high profile situation where a 44 communication group would be needed, like the Pope. When they had all the scandals in the church with the different bishops and things that was going on, in my mind, he had to have a communication person to let him know, because he took ownership. Say, okay, this is what happened.
Yes,
this way, and you could tell somebody had to be coaching him to make sure that he got it right. And
absolutely, because what I find and what I have found over nearly 30 years of doing this is that there is a tendency for people to try and hide when something like that has happened. Right. No matter what the crisis is, the tendency is to hide, the tendency is to deny, right, in many cases. And that is going to just bury you deeper into the crisis than you ever thought you could be. And it's harder to dig out. Once the public, once your customers, once your clients lose trust in you, it is very, very difficult to regain it. It is much harder to build, to repair a reputation, even than it is to build one from ground zero. So the very first thing you must keep in mind is to not hide, is to come out front, however that out front looks. It could be a press conference, it could be social media. The other thing that has changed since the time that I started working in these spaces, whether it's a crisis or not, is that 24-hour news cycle, and also social media, the internet. You really can't hide a crisis anymore. Right. It can be what's happened at your organization can really be around the world in terms of knowledge about it in seconds, in nanoseconds, because of the internet and because of social media. The other thing to remember too is that social media now is sometimes breaking news before reporters, before traditional or legacy media does. Right. That's the other thing organizations need to remember, and also that people read information that's posted on social media. It's usually someone that you're part of their family, so to speak, or their friends, and they tend to believe what they read on social media even more so than they do legacy media, because it's coming from a personal relationship.
Right. So the White House communications director, in my mind, she goes to the president, finds out what it is that she needs to get in front of, and then she comes out and speaks to the reporter. Would that be the same for you? Would you come to that organization, find out what the problem is, and then you put together something for them to get them talking points? Is that the way that works?
And give them talking points. And then there have been times when I've had to speak to the media. I was a media spokesperson for 3 major corporations. So often it was me that was on the hot seat. We had a major layoff at a university that I worked with here in HBCU, and every news station in the city was there, because it's almost unheard of to have a mass layoff at a university, especially of tenured professors. But that's what happened, and so I had to go on camera and explain why we did it, why it had to happen. But the media can be really hostile when when you're in a situation like that, and you really need to know how to manage that communication. And that's one of the areas that we work in also, is media coaching. It's not only preparing those spokespeople with talking points, but helping them to be at their best and to be in control of that message when they step out.
Okay, this last 2 questions, because I got a whole bunch of them, but I'm enjoying this right here.
Sure.
Okay, so let's go back to the smaller company. How, if I'm a small company, I want to use 44 Communications. For one, I want to make sure I get out as a small company and always have the right talking points, so I won't fumble, stumble, and do I get my customer? I reach the customer base I'm trying to reach. A lot of times as a small business, the first thing we start thinking about, what's the cost, or how do I manage this cost? Or in my mind, I think it's something that I need to infuse in my budget on a quarterly, monthly basis or something like that. Is that the way it works, or how do a person gauge the value of it?
Yeah, so I, for people who who have a small business, I don't want them to think that because we've worked with large corporations and we've worked with celebrities that you are not a client for us, because that's absolutely not true. We have pricing, we have programs that are tailored to those specific organizations and their needs. They get the same service that larger organizations get. In other words, we're not going to come to them and skimp because you're a small business. We uncover the same kinds of opportunities, the same kind of problems and barriers as we would other organizations. And then from there, we advise you on how to move forward. It can be key messages, which is critical to any organization. You've got to have key messages. What is it that you want people to know about your organization? If I ask you 3 things that your customers absolutely must know, then that's part of what we do.
Okay.
And we wrap that around marketing and communications. It's very strategic, but it's also very business friendly and it's customer friendly.
See, I like that. I was doing this for our smaller business people. I did this listen to be like, okay, she's been with she's been with the Pope. So, we have to have a benchmark to start with. And
absolutely
having a good tax account and get you started off right, then you don't have to worry about when trouble does arrive, or if it should arrive for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
This is a okay. So this would be so. I go back to the Brett Favre thing. What would you tell a person? What would you tell Brett Favre right now as a communications person? What would be your pitch to him?
So the first thing I would do is internally. So a crisis is internal and external. So internally, while we're managing that crisis, we need to be uncovering what kind of policies were or were not in place that help the crisis to even evolve. He really needs to look internally for that. What crisis was? I mean, what policies were or were not in place? That why did things fall through the cracks? The second thing that he needs to do is to, as I said earlier, come out, own it. There also needs to be a restitution plan. How is he going to make restitution, whether that restitution is monetary or not? Not all restitution is monetary. So what does his restitution strategy look like? And how is he going to deliver that to the people who were harmed? And harm doesn't always mean that you've lost money. Sometimes harm is just the fact that you did something to make me lose faith and confidence in you. So a restitution plan needs to be firmly in place. He and the other people who are part of his leadership team need to be visible and accessible. They need to be on social media daily, posting, giving progress reports, and actually, and this is very important, not just talking, but walking. Walking the talk, talking the talk are 2 different things. So it's very important that Brett and his team use communications and use approaches that will help to regain the trust and confidence of the people who have lost that, and to make restitution.
Okay.
I would actually love to talk to him.
Yeah, I think he needs to talk to you, and when you do get a chance to talk to him, one of the things I want to see is part of the restitution, because it is in my state. I would like to see him donate a large amount of money to the underserved communities in the state of Mississippi. That looks like to me, given financial type of situation to those small communities like that you can't really see, the small town in Mississippi that was hurt by that, because they're the one that's suffering the most. And I'm not talking about getting free satellite for 30 days. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about if it's free education and internet access to give them opportunities to grow. And if I'm talking about giving them funding that goes specifically to HBCUs in the state of Mississippi, not to other PWI, so those are the
right. And restitution and reputation repair are very often 2 sides of the same coin. Reputation repair, it part of it means not just saying you're sorry, but showing that you have admitted a wrong and that you are committed to righting it. And so I think your idea about having them to, extend, for example, satellite and technology to underserved organizations. And that brings up an excellent point, Alvin, because there are still so many communities, children, families who do not have access to high-speed broadband. Right. So monies that should have been going to the poorest families were actually diverted, over $1 million to him personally, and then another several million went to a volleyball stadium that he was in favor of, and so one of the best ways for him to repair his reputation, particularly considering he is a high-profile former NFL player, is that he has got to make restitution to the people who were harmed. So the poorest, neediest families in Mississippi that should have received that money, he needs to give $1.1 million back. And then on top of that, he needs to take his own personal monies and can match that amount at least. He needs to carry it through. He needs to, for example, a lot of those families, as I mentioned, a lot of families who do not have access to high-speed internet, for example, we really saw that glaringly so during the pandemic. These children were already behind because many of them were in subpar schools, but they fell further behind because they did not have access to high-speed internet. So there are just so many ways in which he could bring restitution to those families and start to make them whole if that's possible. But he really does need to come out and be extremely apologetic about what he did, what he received, and reverse that with his own personal funds.
I think the state of Mississippi needs your services as well, because for them to allow such flexibility for this to go along mean that there was all the assurances in place to continue to see stuff like this go on. And not even just with the Brett Favre situation, with the water situation. We have 83% people that are Black African Americans in the city of Jackson. And for years, looked at. So Brett Favre, there's restitution on his part. So that's one thing. And then there's restitution that the state of Mississippi needs to be trying to pay for obvious issues that they've created,
Yeah, those people were with, the people of Mississippi were without clean water for weeks.
Yeah.
And it was in the dead of summer, which made it even more burdensome. Right. But, Alvin, it is amazing to learn how many people in this country do not have access to clean water every day.
Yep.
Every single day they do not have access to clean water. We think it's just something that happens in undeveloped or underdeveloped countries. But no, people in the United States of America, many of them do not have access to clean drinking water.
And in
their communities.
And not to extend that long, because I know I don't want to hold you long, but one of the other things I think about, the reason why it looks like that is we're sending so much money to other countries, to Ukraine, to help them with their crisis, and we have not even fixed Flint, Michigan's problem.
Right.
Flint, Michigan could have been fixed with the first money we sent to Ukraine. If at first we didn't have the money, but now we got money to send to Ukraine, what does that say about your citizens in the United States? The people in Ukraine don't pay taxes to get that money back. They don't work for our government. They don't work for our corporations to pay taxes back to the United States. So that's one of the problems that the country has. The reason why people don't trust the federal government. I understand that there are policies that they have to elect and have to have do two houses to agree. And if you have one house that don't agree, even though another house wants it to happen, it makes the whole country look bad. But then that's another whole problem that's not all for.
Yes, but you're right. There are so many problems of inequity. We can talk about inequity from health to clean water to the criminal justice system, to education. There are so many issues of inequity in our country that we still have not addressed. And Flint is a huge example of the kinds of issues that continue to plague people in our communities.
All right. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Based on the issues that we've uncovered, there's a lot of people that need 44 Consulting Group.
Yes. Bring them on.
Give us your social media and website so people can reach out to you, be able to get in contact with you. How can they reach 44 Consulting Group at Gmail?
Yes. Please visit 44consultinggroup.net. You can learn all about us. It's also a great way to be in touch. You can email me directly at Jennifer@44consultinggroup.net. And then, of course, our number, 404-915-4283. So those are 3 ways that you can get in touch with us, and we would love to hear from you.
And Jennifer, we're going to do all we can to put it out there. This was an amazing interview. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm glad I got a chance to get a hold to you before Oprah and the other big, Jennifer Hudson and all those nice talks. As
I said, you will always be able to get a hold of me, Alvin. And seriously, thank you so much for the platform. I really appreciate it, and I hope I helped some people out there today as well.
You did. It helped us. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You have a great day, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Me as well.
Yeah. Y'all like, share, and follow. We out.
Welcome to 44 Consulting Group.